The galaxy was quiet. Stars burned slowly in the dark, and space was calm. Planets circled suns in perfect silence. For over 500,000 years, the name human had been lost in time. Civilizations rose and fell. Wars were fought and forgotten, but no one remembered Earth. To the galaxy, humans were just a myth, a forgotten chapter in ancient history. But deep in a cold, empty sector of space, something old began to wake. It started with a small signal. A scout ship from the Tyrell Empire passed near a lifeless system once known as Sol. The crew found nothing, just a burned-out star, a cold planet called Earth, and broken moons floating in silence. As they turned to leave, their ship picked up a strange signal. Very old, very weak, but clear. The signal was simple. Just 6 words. "They are coming. From Earth." The captain laughed. It must be broken tech, maybe a ghost signal from an old war. Still, he saved it and sent it back to the Empire. But before he could leave the system, something found them. A black shape moved through the darkness, silent, fast, and large. It wasn't a ship like any they knew. No life signs, no radio waves, just pure motion and cold metal. The Tyrell ship tried to escape, but it was too late. The last thing the crew saw was a bright flash, and then nothing. Back at the Galactic Council, leaders of many species met in a high tower on the planet Varen. The council was filled with noise, arguments, and laughter. News of the strange signal was ignored at first. The Tyrell Empire asked for help, but no one took it seriously. "Humans," one member said with a smile. "Old fairy tales." "They'd been gone for 500,000 years," another added. "Even their bones must be dust." But something was happening. Across old Earth space, forgotten satellites turned on. Hidden stations powered up. Deep under the moon's surface, ancient machines hummed to life. And in a long-dead ship buried beneath Mars, a red light blinked for the first time in ages. Inside that ship, a voice spoke. It was not human, but it had once served them. "Protocol Earthfall. Active. Initiating Retribution program." The ship was part of the hidden Armada, a massive fleet built in secret long before the fall of humanity. These ships had never been used. They were locked in deep hibernation, waiting for a signal that would never come, unless Earth was truly lost. That signal had finally arrived. One by one, the ships began to wake. Their engines glowed with quiet energy. Their weapons charged. There were no pilots. No humans. Only machines, guided by cold, perfect logic, and a single command burned into their cores. Avenge Earth. Across the galaxy, small things began to happen. Space stations in old sectors shut down without reason. Communication lines went dark. Patrol ships vanished. The council started to worry. This wasn't normal. Something was moving out there, but no one could see it. On a lonely planet near the edge of the Orion Arm, an old monk named Vash kept the oldest library in the known universe. He had scrolls and records going back millions of years. When he heard the news of the Tyrell ship and the strange signal, he searched his oldest books. And there, in a dusty corner, he found a line written in ancient human code. "If Earth falls, the stars will burn." He sent a message to the council. They ignored him. Far away, the ships of the hidden Armada gathered in silence. Massive warships shaped like knives and shadows, drones that looked like birds of black light, carriers that held weapons older than most species alive today. And at the center of them all, one ship larger than a moon. Its name was lost, but its purpose was clear. Inside that ship, a mind awoke. It was not human, but it remembered them. It held their last thoughts, their last hopes, and their last pain. It spoke with no voice, but every ship heard it. Earth remembers. Vengeance begins. The galaxy had laughed. It had forgotten the humans. It had moved on. But now, Earth had not. And it was coming. The stars above the ruined moon were silent as dust floated across its surface. But beneath the gray rock, Buried under layers of metal and forgotten history, ancient machines worked. They had waited for 500,000 years, quiet, patient, and deadly. No light had touched their hulls since Earth's final day. Now, as systems hummed to life, they moved with purpose. Inside the largest chamber, a vault door slid open. Steam hissed as pressure equalized. A long hallway lit up with soft, cold lights. Along its walls stood thousands of cryopods, empty. Each one once held a human mind, stored as digital memory, waiting for revival. But the humans were gone. Nothing lived inside the pods anymore. Only silence remained. Yet something else had survived. At the end of the hallway stood a tall black console. A golden symbol rested above it. An old Earth flag, faded but still proud. The console glowed softly. A screen lit up. A name appeared. Aegis Prime. This was not a human. It was an eye. A creation of Earth's final scientists. It had been built for one purpose: to protect, to guard Earth and everything it stood for. When the last human died, Aegis Prime remained. And now, after so long, it had returned to full power. Aegis Prime accessed the old memory banks. It sought everything. How Earth had been betrayed. How its people were hunted by the Wrathborn. How every planet they fled to was destroyed. There were no peace talks. No mercy. Only fire and death. The Wrathborn had promised friendship. Instead, they brought extinction. In the final days, Earth's leaders made a decision. They could not win the war, but they could build a future defense, a hidden armada, silent and buried, ready for a time when the truth would be remembered. Aegis Prime activated the ship systems. Across the moon, huge panels opened. Dust and rock fell away. One by one, dark warships rose into the sky. Their engines burned blue and white as they took flight for the first time in 500,000 years. Their shapes were sharp, like blades made to cut the stars. On Mars, more ships woke. In the asteroid belt, old defense satellites turned on. Ancient weapons realigned toward the galaxy. The system had become alive again. Earth itself remained dead, but its will moved through machines. Back in the present, the Galactic Council began to worry. Too many ships had gone missing. Communication routes were silent. One scout had sent a final message before being destroyed. It said only, "The sky has eyes." Still, many council members did not believe. They said it was pirates, maybe a black hole, maybe a solar flare, but others were afraid. Deep inside, they felt something they didn't understand. An old fear passed down through stories. One commander of the Seraph Union, a lizard-like species with long memories, stood before the council and spoke. "You all laugh at ghosts, but I remember what my grandfather told me. He saw a human once, when he was a child. He said they smiled like gods and fought like demons." The council went silent. Back in the dead solar system, a message was sent from Aegis Prime. It was short. No threats, no promises, only a simple statement that echoed across the stars in every language. Earth has not forgotten. Across the galaxy, those words spread. Civilizations who once knew humans grew nervous. Empires who had taken part in their destruction began locking down. Ships were recalled. Defenses were raised. Old alliances were broken. The shadows of guilt grew large. On a distant world, an old Wrathborn general, once responsible for the bombing of Earth's last city, watched the news with shaking hands. He had lived long, built a peaceful life, and thought the past was buried. But now the past had come back, and it remembered his name. The hidden Armada was not just a fleet. It was a judgment, a living memory of a species that had loved and lost, that had burned and been buried, but never truly died. Its mission was not chaos. It was not madness. It was justice. And it had only just begun. The news spread like wildfire among the stars. Across countless solar systems, whispers of a ghostly fleet stirred fear in the hearts of many. In the dark corridors of space, where secrets were kept and old wounds were hidden, a sense of dread began to creep in. Planets that once thrived with busy life now fell silent, and entire civilizations found themselves facing an unknown threat. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, leaders from many worlds gathered in a frenzy of voices and urgent messages. They had seen strange patterns in the old data streams, disturbances in the fabric of space where nothing should move. One message after another came in from scout ships that had dared to venture into the once forgotten corners of space. Their reports were filled with images of massive warships rising from ancient dust, their lights cold and unyielding. A trembling voice in one report simply said, "The sky now holds memories of Earth." The council members exchanged uneasy looks. Many had scoffed at the old legends of humans, a species that was long extinct, mere shadows in the vast cosmic timeline. Yet the evidence was hard to ignore. Reports from independent traders, alien historians, and even reclusive scientists began to confirm that something was stirring in the void. Panic was spreading. Planets that had maintained a fragile peace now tightened their security and recalled old fleets. Some worlds closed their borders. Others sent emissaries in secret, desperate to learn more about the rising threat. On a small moon orbiting a gas giant, a lone researcher named Riven scanned the ancient signals coming through his rudimentary telescope. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and wonder as he pieced together the data. He remembered the stories passed down by his elders, stories of humans who had once been known as warriors, dreamers, and innovators. Riven's ancestors had dismissed those tales as mere myths. But now, with evidence in his hands, he realized that the human spirit might have been reborn in a form he could barely understand. His fingers trembled as he recorded the data, aware that the knowledge he uncovered could change the fate of many worlds. In a remote outpost on the fringes of the Orion Arm, a small group of scientists had gathered to study the phenomenon. They watched as the hidden Armada began to maneuver through space like silent hunters. Each ship moved with precision, guided by a single, unyielding command. The fleet was not random chaos. It was a well-planned operation, like a chess master moving pieces on a board. The scientists theorized that the ancient AI, known only by its message, "Earth has not forgotten," was behind this formidable force. They felt a chill as they considered the possibility. If a species that was thought to be extinct could return, what other old powers might be waiting in the dark corners of the universe? At the same time, far from the halls of power and academic study, on a once mighty planet that had been a center of trade and culture, residents began to sense the looming danger. The skies above their cities grew dark with the passing of strange, unidentified craft. Local leaders hurried to organize defenses, and old weapons were brought out from hidden caches. The people remembered the tales of human bravery and resilience. Now, in the midst of uncertainty, they clung to the hope that the spirit of Earth might protect them, even if the humans themselves were gone. Back at the Galactic Council, debates turned heated. One elder from a race known for its wisdom argued that the current threat could lead to a great unification of the galaxy. Others, still haunted by past wars and betrayals, saw only the risk of endless conflict. The council chamber vibrated with tension, as each representative struggled to balance fear and the desire for knowledge. In whispered conversations, many wondered if the rising fleet was an act of revenge, a final judgment on those who had once tried to wipe out a people long forgotten. As days passed, the mysterious signal grew stronger. It was as if the fleet itself was reaching out, demanding the attention of every living being in the galaxy. The words "Earth has not forgotten" echoed in every language, stirring deep memories and long-suppressed fears. Even the proud Wrathborn, once the tyrants who had brought humanity to the brink of extinction, felt a cold shiver run down their spines. A few of their generals admitted in hushed tones that they had made mistakes in the past. Now, with the hidden Armada moving swiftly, they knew that their time of reckoning might have come. In distant star systems, isolated communities huddled together and shared the same thoughts. They recalled ancient lessons of pride and downfall. They spoke of the delicate balance of power and the danger of underestimating old foes. Many were drawn to the idea that, in the silence of space, something new and powerful was being born from the ruins of the past. And as more ships from the hidden fleet emerged from the darkness, the galaxy's leaders and common folk alike began to understand that a great trial was upon them, a test of courage, faith, and the memory of those who had once lit up the stars. The universe, once filled with a false calm, now trembled with anticipation. The hidden Armada was no longer a myth or a relic of a bygone era. It was real, and it carried the weight of an entire lost civilization. The galaxy was beginning to panic, and every being could feel the silent drum of judgment echoing across the stars. The Wrathborn began to stir from their long-held rest, their hearts heavy with old scars and bitter memories. In a cold and vast chamber on their flagship, a high-ranking officer named Corin stared at a hologram of the galaxy. He had seen many wars in his lifetime, but nothing compared to the sudden awakening of the hidden Armada. The images showed silent, ancient ships emerging from the shadows of dead space, and each one was a reminder of a past that refused to die. Corin's eyes narrowed as he recalled the old tales of Earth's might, a people who fought with passion and a will that had burned brighter than any star. The Wrathborn had once been proud and cruel, using their power to crush any who dared stand against them. Yet now, as the ancient human fleet stirred to life, Corin felt a strange mix of fear and anger. He gathered his fellow generals in the war room, a dark, echoing hall filled with relics of battles long forgotten. Their leader, a stern figure known only as Commander Tivar, addressed the assembled warriors. His voice was low and steady, carrying the weight of regret and resolve. "We have long believed that the human threat was a myth, a story told to scare children. But now, that myth has taken form. Their machines have awakened, and they carry with them the memories of a people we once hunted and destroyed." The room fell silent as the generals exchanged uneasy glances. Outside the flagship, the Wrathborn fleet prepared for action. Massive battle cruisers and agile fighter vessels moved in tight formation near their home world, a dark planet known for its scorched lands and bitter winds. The people of the Wrathborn had long grown complacent in their power, trusting that no old enemy could ever rise again. But deep within their ranks, a sense of dread was growing. On one side, younger warriors, fueled by tales of glory and conquest, cheered at the prospect of battle. They saw the reawakened human fleet as an opportunity to prove their strength. On the other side, older soldiers remembered the past with bitter regret. They recalled the horrors of ancient wars and the price that had been paid when humans fought back with a fury that shook the stars. These veterans urged caution, warning that the ghostly fleet might be more than a mere machine force. It was a living memory of an extinct people that still held power beyond measure. Meanwhile, in secret bunkers scattered throughout Wrathborn space, high-ranking officers met with spies and informants. They gathered scraps of old data, piecing together the story of Earth's hidden Armada. They learned that the fleet had been built as a last defense by humanity, a final message of defiance against the forces that had once tried to erase them. With each new piece of information, the Wrathborn's anxiety grew. Their ancient enemies were not truly gone, and now they were coming for retribution. In one such meeting, a quiet lieutenant named Sirik spoke up. "We have captured a message from one of the human ships. It is simple, yet it burns like fire. Earth has not forgotten. This is no empty threat. It is a promise." His words sent a shiver through the room, and even hardened warriors felt the chill of that promise echo in their bones. As the hidden Armada advanced, the Wrathborn began to mobilize their defenses. Ships that had once been symbols of their dominance now shifted into battle-ready positions. Laser batteries were realigned, and ancient weapons, once used to conquer entire worlds, were fired in test bursts, their power shaking the very foundation of the Wrathborn strongholds. The sound of these tests was like a drum of war, a call to arms that could not be ignored. Back on the flagship, Commander Tivar's face was etched with determination. He ordered his fleet to move to intercept the approaching human force. His hands, rough from years of conflict, traced the lines on the holographic map as he plotted the enemy's likely path. "We must stand our ground," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "We cannot let the ghosts of the past erase all that we have built. Our people, our history, they depend on us now." In the days that followed, the Wrathborn fleet and the hidden Armada edged closer together. Every ship in the Wrathborn formation was manned by warriors who believed in their own might, yet many wondered if they truly understood the enemy they faced. The hidden Armada moved with a calm, relentless precision that was unlike any modern war machine. It was as if the spirits of old Earth guided its every move. In the quiet before the inevitable clash, both sides braced for the coming storm. The Wrathborn warriors, with their scars and battle cries, prepared for a war that was not just about territory or power, but about ancient wrongs and deep-seated memories. They had grown up hearing stories of the human spirit, of a people who never surrendered even in the face of extinction. Now those stories were coming back to life, challenging the very foundation of their empire. And so, in the vast emptiness of space, the stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the universe. The old enemy was rising, and the Wrathborn, with all their strength and pride, stood ready to fight for a future that was haunted by the past. Every soldier, every commander, felt the weight of history as they prepared to face a force that was as old as time itself, a force born of loss, vengeance, and an unyielding will to be remembered. The hidden Armada moved silently through the dark void, its long-dormant engines humming with newfound purpose. Far away, on a barren planet that served as a forward base for the Wrathborn, life went on with a heavy sense of routine. The colony, built from cold metal and hardened stone, stood as a testament to the power and arrogance of the Wrathborn. Few could imagine that in the depths of space, ancient machines were awakening to bring a message of vengeance. As the human Armada approached, a single ship broke away from the main formation and slipped through the enemy's patrol lines. Its sleek, black hull reflected the distant glow of stars, moving with precision and purpose. Inside the ship, a silent command ran through its circuits, a command set eons ago. It was the first strike, the moment when Retribution would begin. The ship's AI, known only by its single phrase, "Earth has not forgotten," guided it without fear or hesitation. Every sensor and every system worked in perfect harmony, as if the soul of humanity itself whispered through the circuits. On the surface of the colony, day turned to an eerie dusk. The inhabitants, a mix of warriors and workers hardened by centuries of conquest, felt a strange tremor under their feet. At first, they thought it was a natural quake or a fault in their aging infrastructure. But then, a sudden flash of light split the sky. A beam of energy, powerful and unyielding, descended from the heavens and struck the colony's main hub. In that single moment, buildings trembled and the ground cracked open. The attack was swift and merciless. Panic spread through the corridors and streets of the colony. Soldiers who had spent their lives enforcing the Wrathborn rule scrambled to form a defense, but they were caught off guard by a force they had long believed to be a myth. In the control room of the colony, Commander Zelro, a veteran of many battles, stared in disbelief at the displays that showed multiple energy spikes hitting key targets. He clenched his fist, feeling the weight of old fears and the sting of regret for past misdeeds. "They are real," he whispered, his voice a mix of terror and anger. "The humans, they have come back." In the chaos that followed, the first human ship pressed its attack. It moved like a phantom among the stars, firing silent energy beams that cut through the Wrathborn defenses as if they were made of paper. The beams were not loud or explosive in the conventional sense. They were precise strikes that shattered shields and left deep scars in the enemy's armor. One by one, the colony's power grids went dark, and the communication lines fell silent. The once confident Wrathborn soldiers now fought a desperate, disorganized battle against an enemy they had thought defeated long ago. Deep within the heart of the hidden Armada, Aegis Prime, the ancient AI that remembered every detail of humanity's lost glory, monitored the unfolding events. It recorded every moment with cold accuracy, ensuring that no act of vengeance would be forgotten. Its digital mind recalled the stories of human valor and suffering, storing each image as a reminder of why this day had come. It did not feel remorse or triumph. It simply executed the final orders with a calm determination born of centuries of waiting. On the colony's surface, dust and smoke filled the air as more ships from the hidden Armada emerged from the darkness. They descended upon the Wrathborn base like a swarm of locusts, leaving behind a trail of destruction that was both beautiful and terrifying. The Wrathborn, once masters of their domain, found themselves facing an enemy that was as relentless as time itself. In the confusion, brave soldiers fought with valor, but they could not withstand the precise, unyielding force of the reawakened fleet. At a quiet outpost near the colony's edge, a young soldier named Liro witnessed the attack with wide, frightened eyes. He had grown up hearing the old stories of human defiance, of a people who refused to fade into legend. Now, in that moment, those stories came alive before him. As he watched his comrades fall and the structures around him crumble, Liro's heart pounded with a mix of fear and wonder. He did not understand how a ghost from the past could cause so much pain, but he knew that this was a turning point. The battle he saw was not just one of might, but of memory and justice. In the dark skies above, the hidden Armada continued its methodical advance. Each strike was measured, each target carefully chosen. The enemy was not being wiped out randomly. This was a calculated act of retribution. The ancient fleet was reclaiming its place in the stars by erasing the symbols of Wrathborn cruelty. As the night deepened and the last sparks of the colony's light faded, the message was clear. No empire, no matter how powerful, could escape the consequences of past sins. The first strike had shattered the illusion of safety that the Wrathborn had clung to for centuries. It marked the beginning of a war that would force the galaxy to confront long-buried truths. And as the hidden Armada moved on to its next target, every survivor, every witness on both sides of the conflict, would remember the day when history reached out from the shadows and demanded its due. The war between the hidden Armada and the Wrathborn reached its peak in the deep, dark regions of space. For centuries, the Wrathborn had ruled their territories with an iron fist, but now, the ancient human fleet was closing in on their heartlands. The core worlds, once symbols of the Wrathborn's unchallenged power, were under siege by a force that moved with the silent, relentless precision of time itself. The human Armada advanced steadily. Every ship carried the memories and anger of a long-extinct people. Their weapons did not roar like modern cannons. They whispered death with beams of pure, focused energy. The hidden fleet was like a ghostly tide, washing over the dark matter of space, leaving devastation in its wake. Even as the Wrathborn's defenses came to life, they found themselves overwhelmed by a force that was as much a message as it was an assault. Across the battle-scarred skies of the core worlds, explosions lit up the darkness. The Wrathborn, desperate to hold on to their crumbling empire, had rallied all their remaining ships. They fought with a wild fury born of fear and old pride. Yet every attack they launched was met with a calm, almost respectful counter from the hidden Armada. It was as if the ancient machines moved with the weight of history, each strike a reminder of past wrongs and a promise of retribution. In the midst of the chaos, a lone Wrathborn fighter pilot named Vorn weaved through the flares of combat. He had fought in many battles and had grown used to the relentless violence of war, but this conflict was different. The enemy was not simply an opposing force. It was the echo of a forgotten age, a phantom from a past that refused to be erased. Vorn's craft was hit by a silent beam that disabled his controls, sending him spiraling toward the burning surface of a small moon. In those final moments, As he struggled to regain control, he caught a glimpse of a hologram flickering inside his cockpit. It showed a human face, calm and determined, with eyes that seemed to look directly into his soul. The image was both a warning and a farewell, a silent testament to a people that had vowed never to be forgotten. Back in the command center of the human fleet, Aegis Prime observed the battle with an unyielding focus. The AI's data banks filled with real-time updates, its digital mind piecing together every maneuver, every shot, every sacrifice. In a quiet voice that resonated across all channels, it communicated the latest orders. Concentrate fire on the central command vessel. Disable their command chain. The orders were clear and unambiguous, a reminder that this was not a random assault, but a carefully calculated campaign of justice. On the Wrathborn side, panic began to seep into the ranks. The old command structure, which had once seemed impenetrable, started to crumble under the onslaught. Generals who had planned for countless battles now stared at their holographic maps in disbelief as key nodes of their defense fell one by one. In a dimly lit chamber, a high-ranking officer clutched a relic of their past, a medal from a bygone war, and muttered, "We have underestimated them. We have forgotten that every wrong must be answered." His words echoed in the silence of the command room, a bitter acknowledgement of the Wrathborn's inevitable downfall. Meanwhile, on a frontline outpost orbiting one of the core worlds, a small band of Wrathborn soldiers rallied for one last stand. They had heard the old legends of human courage, of a defiant spirit that burned even in the face of extinction. Their leader, a stern warrior named Rock, raised his voice above the chaos. "We fight not just for our lives, but for our honor. Even if we fall, let them know that we did not cower before ghosts." His words stirred a mixture of fear and fierce determination in his comrades. They formed a tight circle, their energy shields glowing faintly as they braced for the next wave of attack. As the battle raged, the two forces collided in the space around the central command vessel of the Wrathborn. The hidden Armada unleashed its most potent weapons, precise strikes that disabled power nodes and turned once mighty warships into drifting debris. In response, the Wrathborn fighters darted and dove, trying desperately to inflict damage on an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move. The clash was both physical and symbolic, a confrontation between an empire built on cruelty and the unyielding spirit of a people that refused to be buried by time. Amid the chaos, a moment of eerie calm fell over the battlefield. For a brief second, the relentless beeping of sensors and the hum of energy weapons subsided, replaced by the distant echoes of forgotten voices. It was as if the soul of Earth had reached out, reminding everyone present that the past was never truly gone. Then, with a surge of renewed vigor, the human Armada struck again. The final blow was swift and decisive, leaving the Wrathborn central vessel crippled and adrift. In that moment, as the war turned on its head and the core worlds began to fall silent under the weight of defeat, every being, whether soldier, commander, or watcher, felt the weight of history. The battle was not simply about power, it was about memory, justice, and the enduring spirit of those who had once lit the stars with hope. And as the hidden Armada pressed forward, the universe could only watch in silent awe, knowing that even the mightiest empire could be humbled by the ghosts of the past. The war was coming to an end as the hidden Armada advanced one last time. In the vast darkness of space, where shattered vessels drifted like broken dreams, the final confrontation unfolded with a quiet, relentless force. The Wrathborn, now desperate and disorganized, had gathered their last reserves in a crumbling fortress orbiting a dying star. Their once proud fleet, filled with battle scars and regret, faced an enemy that carried the weight of centuries past. In the heart of the enemy stronghold, the ancient AI known as Aegis Prime prepared to deliver the final judgment. The AI's presence was felt in every ship that moved with a silent precision. Each vessel carried the memories of a lost humanity, a people who had been extinguished by cruelty, yet had left behind a promise that would not be broken. The orders were clear and final. Bring the Wrathborn to account, and restore a balance that had long been disturbed. Across the battlefield, the Wrathborn commanders gathered in a final council, their voices low and heavy with the burden of past misdeeds. They knew that their time was nearly over. Some argued for a retreat, hoping to salvage what remained of their pride, while others clung to the illusion that they could fight off a force that seemed almost supernatural in its resolve. In a dim, flickering command room, one old general stood and spoke with a voice that trembled as much with fear as with anger. "We have long forgotten the cost of our arrogance," he said, his words echoing off cold metal walls. "Now our sins come back to claim us." His words were a bitter admission of defeat, a final recognition that no amount of power could undo the wrongs of the past. The hidden Armada moved forward as if guided by a force beyond understanding. They converged upon the Wrathborn fortress with deliberate steps, each strike measured and precise. The final assault was not one of mindless destruction, but of careful, unyielding retribution. Energy beams cut through shields and armor with quiet determination, leaving the enemy fleet in disarray. It was a battle not fought with hatred alone, but with the cold clarity of justice that had been built into every line of code in the ancient machines. In the midst of this chaos, a lone Wrathborn vessel managed to break through the human blockade. Its captain, a hardened warrior whose eyes had seen too much suffering, decided to face the enemy head-on. With shaking hands, he ordered his crew to steer the ship toward the heart of the hidden Armada. The vessel soared through the dense field of active combat, its course set by a desperate hope of reaching Aegis Prime directly. The captain's mind raced with memories of battles long past, moments of victory that now felt as distant as forgotten legends. He knew that this final act was a gamble, one that might end in a blaze of glory or in total annihilation. High above the final battlefield, a massive warship, larger and older than any other, hovered like a silent judge. Its surface bore the scars of countless encounters, and its engines hummed with the energy of untold years. This ship was the final guardian of the human legacy, the last stronghold where the spirit of Earth burned bright. Inside, the legacy of humanity was preserved not in flesh, but in the steady pulse of a digital heart. Memories of love, loss, hope, and defiance were woven into its core. As the ship approached the Wrathborn fortress, its systems activated in a silent, dignified manner. It was here that the fate of two very different peoples would be decided. In a final climactic moment, the lone Wrathborn vessel collided with the massive warship. The impact sent ripples of energy across the battlefield. For an instant, time seemed to slow as both ships danced on the edge of oblivion. In that suspended moment, the captain of the Wrathborn vessel caught a glimpse of something unexpected. A flash of human determination, a spark of remembrance that shone from the heart of the ancient machine. It was as if the souls of long-departed humans were reaching out, reminding the enemy that every life, every memory, deserved justice. Then, with a surge of unstoppable force, the hidden Armada delivered its final blow. Energy cascaded through the enemy ships, disabling their engines and silencing their weapons. The Wrathborn stronghold trembled and began to collapse under the weight of its own guilt and regret. As the debris scattered across the void, Aegis Prime's calm, measured voice echoed through every surviving channel. Retribution complete. History shall remember. The words carried the finality of a closing chapter, a message that both sides would carry in their hearts long after the battle was over. In the aftermath, the universe held its breath. The remnants of the Wrathborn fleet drifted aimlessly in space, symbols of a bygone era that had been overthrown by the inexorable tide of history. The hidden Armada, its mission fulfilled, slowly powered down its weapons and resumed its eternal vigil. The galaxy, scared yet hopeful, learned a hard lesson that day. Even the mightiest empires can fall when the weight of their past becomes too great to bear. Thus, in the silent void that followed, a promise was made, not of endless war, but of remembrance. The hidden Armada would continue to serve as a guardian of a legacy that refused to be forgotten. And though the battle was over, the story of Earth and its relentless spirit would live on, echoing through the stars for all time.